Welcome back to the Vehicle Survival Guide. Today we'll be covering one of the most iconic American muscle cars of all time, the 1969 to 1970 model year Mustang. Ford's introduction of the Mustang in 1964 started a new era in Detroit. From that moment until the early 70s, Detroit and the American public were caught up in a horsepower frenzy. The automakers in Detroit constantly pushed new and more powerful cars to the public, and they bought them as fast as they rolled off the assembly lines. In 1969, both GM and Chrysler had solid answers to Ford's Mustang, most notably with the Chevrolet Camaro and Dodge Charger. The horsepower race had culminated into cars like the Super Yanko or Z28 Camaro, and the 446 pack and the 426 Hemi Chargers. To keep up with the competition, Ford needed a new Mustang. So, in 1969, Ford facelifted the new Mustang. They made the new design much more aggressive than the previous years, and Ford also introduced new models and engines to compete with the rest of Detroit in their new high-powered muscle cars. There was a slight redesign in 1970 to turn down the aggressiveness of the previous year. The new Mustang got a major facelift in 1969. Taking advantage of its more aggressive looks, Ford also redesigned its whole marketing approach to the Mustang. Ford not only wanted the Mustang to be more powerful, but to look more powerful too. They widened and lowered the stance and made the wheel arches more pronounced. The performance packages also added some exterior features to enhance the aggressiveness of the Mustang. The big news in 1969 was the three new engines that Ford had developed for the Mustang. Ford added a new i6 to the Thrift Power engine family, and they also created two new engines for their brand new Boss performance package. Ford not only wanted to market the Mustang as a performance vehicle, but they also wanted to sell the Mustang as a car for everyone. And they created three new trim levels to meet that goal. Ford wanted to expand the market for the Mustang by offering a luxury model. The Grande featured a more comfortable interior, a vinyl roof, an electric clock, and extra soundproofing. The Mach 1 was Ford's attempt at a step above the GT package. The Mach 1 featured front and rear spoilers, rear louvers over the back window, a special graphics package, and upgraded suspension components. The Boss package was Ford's flagship performance option for the non-Shelby Mustangs. They came in the 302 and 429 variants, with different appearance and performance upgrades for each engine option. Due to poor sales and the wild success of the Mach 1 package, Ford discontinued the GT at the end of the 1969 model year. In 1970, the executives at Ford thought that the over-aggressive styling of the 1969 Mustang hurt its sales. They quickly redesigned the Mustang by removing the exterior scoops from most of the models and redesigning the front face of the Mustang. With the new style came a new engine family. Using techniques and designs learned from their performance engine programs, Ford created the Cleveland engine. Although the same displacement as the Windsors, the Cleveland 351 was essentially a brand new engine developed from scratch. In this section, we will go through the differences in the exterior styling of the Mustang between 1968 and 1970. Ford wanted a more aggressive-looking Mustang to help sell the public on a new, more powerful model. However, by 1970, executives at Ford believed that the aggressiveness of the redesign had cost them sales, and they decided to go with a more conservative design for the next year. The reason that the 1969 and 1970 Mustangs are grouped together is because they are based off the same chassis. Despite major differences at the front and rear of the cars, they share almost all of the same body lines between the wheels. To make the Mustang look more aggressive in 1969, Ford took the front from the previous year and exaggerated its features. The biggest changes were the enlarged inner lights, the simplified grille, deeper headlight housings, and the change from a flat to an angled grille. In 1970, the front was redesigned again to make the Mustang look tamer. The grille and the inner lights were enlarged, and the outer lights were replaced with turn signals. The middle of the car and most of the major body lines remained the same between 1969 and 1970, which is why these cars are considered part of the same body style. The only major difference between the two cars is the scoop behind the side windows was removed in 1970. For 1969, Ford carried over the concave rear panel from the previous year, but raised the rear lights out of the panel instead of leaving them flush. In 1970, Ford redesigned the rear panel again to go with the new front. The panel went from concave to flat, and some models even had plastic decorative panels factory installed. The taillights were also made flush with the rear panel again, made bigger and given more decoration. Ford brought back many of its most popular engines for the 1969 to 1970 model year. However, they also introduced several new engines over the course of that generation. The Thrift Power Inline-6 engine family was brought back again for 1969. Instead of the traditional 200 cubic inch engine, Ford offered a brand new 250 cubic inch engine, which was the same except it had a larger stroke. The 250 made 155 horsepower and 240 foot-pounds of torque. In 1970, the 200 cubic inch engine was reintroduced to the Mustang lineup and produced 120 horsepower and 190 foot-pounds of torque. The Windsor engines were offered in 302 cubic inches and two different configurations for the 351 cubic inch engine. The 302 is the traditional small block V8 for the Mustang, producing about 210 horsepower and about 300 foot-pounds of torque. The 302 is an excellent economy option for customers who wanted a V8. The 351 cubic inch engine came with either a 2-barrel or a 4-barrel carb. The 351 was a mid-range engine producing about 250 horsepower and 355 foot-pounds of torque for the 2-barrel version, or 290 horsepower and 385 foot-pounds of torque for the 4-barrel version. Although the 302 continued to be widely used by Ford, 1969 was the last year for the 351 Windsor and the Mustang. They were replaced by the Cleveland family in 1970. Introduced in 1970, the Cleveland family were the direct replacements for the earlier Windsor engines. The Clevelands used new technology and processes Ford learned in their performance engine development. The new engines featured the revolutionary poly-angle combustion chamber and thin wall casting. These features made the engine lighter and allowed for better combustion in the chambers. Like the Windsor engines, the Clevelands also came in 2- and 4-barrel configurations. The 2-barrel put out 255 horsepower and 355 foot-pounds of torque, while the 4-barrel made 300 horsepower and 385 foot-pounds of torque. Ford also offered a variety of high-performance engines for the 1969 to 1970 model year. The tamest performance engine offered by Ford was the Boss 302 engine. Brand new for 1969, the engine was designed from the ground up with advanced cylinder head design and casting processes. The Boss 302 produced 290 horsepower and 290 pound-feet of torque. The oldest engine in this group is the FE 390 Big Block. Appearing in the Mustang for the last time in 1969, the FE 390 made 320 horsepower and 427 foot-pounds of torque. The second largest engine offered by Ford for the 1969 to 1970 model years was the 428 Cobra Jet engine, producing 335 horsepower and 440 foot-pounds of torque. But the most powerful and largest engine offered by Ford was another brand new engine. Like the 302, the Boss 429 was created for the Boss Performance Package. The 429 was developed to be the last word in Mustang performance from the factory. Out of the box, the 429 made 375 horsepower and 450 foot-pounds of torque. Ford offered 7 transmissions for the Mustang, 4 of which were manual transmissions with wide and close gear ratio sets, and the other 3 were automatic transmissions. The manual transmissions offered for the Mustang were known as the Ford top loaders because the service access for the transmission was on top of the unit. The top loaders came in 2 styles, a 3 and a 4 speed with 2 gear sets for each. Neither the 3 or 4 speed transmissions came with overdrive, but they would come with a wide and a close ratio gear set, depending on what the owner was using the car for. The wide ratio set was best for highway driving with large gaps between the gears to allow for the driver to spend more time in each gear. The close ratio, however, was best for the drag strip, with gear sets that kept the engine in its power band longer but required the driver to shift more frequently to take advantage of it. The Cruise-O-Matic, also known as the FMX, was one of Ford's earliest automatic transmission families. It was an aluminum oil-cooled 3-speed non-overdrive transmission, and Ford's first widely used automatic transmission. The FMX, while derived from the Cruise-O-Matic family, was the result of an overcrowded transmission factory and Ford trying to save money in production costs. To reduce the number and types of transmissions being produced and simplify their production lines, Ford decided to combine the smaller size of the FX transmission with the stronger internal design of the MX transmission, creating the FMX. The FMX featured a tame gear set with wide ratios so it would be perfect for town and highway driving. Building off of the lessons learned with the Cruise-O-Matic program, Ford developed both the C4 and the C6 transmissions. The C4 was designed to be a low-power small car transmissions for all engines up to and including the 302 small block. The C6 transmission, however, was designed primarily as a truck transmission and was intended to handle the power from Ford's big blocks. Both transmissions were designed to be strong but as lightweight as possible for their application. Like the FMX, the C4 and C6 transmissions featured highway gearing for better daily driver experience. Finally, for simplicity, both transmissions shared the same gear ratio from the factory. Ford offered two axles for the Mustang in 1969, known as the Ford 8-inch and the Ford 9-inch. The Ford 8-inch axle was intended for low-power applications and was only really designed to handle the output of the Windsor 302 cubic inch small block. However, the Ford 9-inch is known as one of the strongest axles Ford ever built in terms of horsepower. The 9-inch was designed to handle the power put down by some of Ford's largest engines, and as a result earned the reputation as a nearly indestructible axle. The Ford 9-inch is widely used today in many drag racing and high horsepower applications. Both axles feature a removable center section that makes swapping gear ratios and servicing the gears easier than the traditional method of using a differential cover. Ford offered a wide variety of rear-end ratios for every application a customer could think of, ranging from 2.75 to 1 for optimal performance and fuel efficiency, to 4.3 to 1, which was great for power and acceleration. Ford even offered a limited slip traction device called traction lock, or more commonly track lock, with certain ratios to improve the Mustang's performance. The 1969-70 Mustang came in three body styles: the hardtop, better known as the coupe, the sports roof, better known as the fastback, and the convertible. The coupe was the most popular Mustang body style for the 1969 model years, with over 240,000 sold between 1969 and 1970. Despite that popularity, Ford only offered three packages, and one was discontinued by the end of 1969. The coupe came with the standard package out of the factory, which could be upgraded or changed to almost any configuration the owner could think of. The optional packages were the Grande, which was a complete luxury overhaul of the Mustang, and the GT package was the basic V8 performance model of the Mustang. The fastback is the iconic body style for this generation of Mustangs. Despite that, the coupes outsold the fastbacks by a wide margin in both 1969 and 1970. The fastbacks were the most marketed body style, with most of the promotions and special editions revolving around them. The fastback could also be ordered with one of three standard packages from the factory. The available packages were the GT, the Mach 1, and the Boss 302 or 429. The GT on the fastback was the same as the coupe and convertible. The Mach 1 package was a performance upgrade that included either a 302 cubic inch V8 or a 351 cubic inch V8, special suspension, and an exterior graphics package that included special striping, window louvers, and front and rear spoilers. The Boss package was a limited production run meant to showcase the Mustang's performance ability. By far the least popular Mustang, the convertible never really outsold the other body styles during the entire production run. Convertible buyers got all the options that the other buyers had access to, but Ford never really offered any packages besides the GT package on the convertible, and that was phased out at the end of 1969 due to the popularity of the Mach 1 on the fastback. Thank you guys so much for watching my first ever video, and please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content.